In the middle of a vast, unexplored ocean, Captain Ron Masters led a diverse crew on a voyage no one had dared attempt before. Rumors of an uncharted island, a place untouched by time, populated by beings with incomprehensible lifespans, fueled his curiosity. Ron, a former naval officer, carried a map handed down by his grandfather, who spoke of an island hidden from the eyes of men, home to an alien civilization. It was a place where women aged 10 times slower than humans, a phenomenon said to hold the key to unlocking longevity. The expedition was born from more than curiosity. Ron needed answers. His wife had died from a rare illness, and his daughter's health was in decline. If the tales were true, this could be the discovery that changed everything, not only for his family, but for humanity itself. His first mate, Kara, shared his hope. They had sailed together for years, but this mission was personal for her too. She believed that knowledge of the aliens' biological secrets could lead to breakthroughs in modern medicine. Armed with sonar, drones, and supplies for several weeks, their ship, the Horizon, cut through the misty sea. When they first spotted land, the crew erupted into cheers. The island appeared suddenly, as if it had materialized from the fog. Towering cliffs lined the shore, encircled by jagged rocks that made navigation difficult. Ron squinted at the dense forests beyond the cliffs, an eerie feeling washing over him. It wasn't just an island. It felt like a living entity, a place waiting to be awakened. They dropped anchor, and with supplies in tow, the crew set foot on the sandy shores. Immediately, a strange energy buzzed through the air. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, they came across humanoid statues, figures resembling women, their faces serene, as if frozen in time. Kara whispered, "It's like they're waiting." Suddenly, the statues shifted. Eyes blinked open. They were not statues. They were alive. As the statues blinked to life, the crew instinctively stepped back, their hands hovering near weapons out of reflex. But Ron raised his hand, signaling them to hold. The beings before them, though humanoid in appearance, radiated an otherworldly presence. Their skin shimmered faintly under the filtered sunlight, hues shifting from pale gold to soft lavender. As they moved, each alien woman had eyes that carried the weight of centuries, deep pools of experience and emotion that seemed impossible for a human to grasp. One of the figures, taller and adorned with intricate symbols etched into her skin, stepped forward, her gaze calm but assessing. Ron and Kara exchanged a glance, the same unspoken thought passing between them. These beings were not hostile, at least, not yet. Ron took a cautious step forward. "We come in peace," he began, his voice steady but laced with awe. "We've traveled far to find this place." The tall alien woman tilted her head slightly, as if weighing his words. Then, with a voice like a breeze whispering through ancient trees, she spoke. "You are human. Few have made it here. Fewer still have returned." Her words sent a shiver through the group. Kara leaned in, whispering to Ron, "They know about us. They've seen others." Ron nodded but kept his gaze on the woman. "We seek knowledge," he said earnestly. "There are legends of this island, of a people who live beyond time, who understand things we can only imagine. We wish to learn." The alien woman regarded him for a moment longer, then gave a slight nod. "You may call me Lyrian," she said. "If you wish to learn, you must understand. Time flows differently here. Your kind ages quickly." Her gaze softened, but there was a trace of sadness in it. "What we possess may save or destroy you. You must be prepared for both." At her words, another alien woman stepped forward, her expression more guarded, her movements fluid yet deliberate. "Why have you truly come?" she asked sharply. "Men seek many things: power, immortality, control. What is it you hope to gain?" Ron didn't hesitate. "We hope to save lives," he said firmly. "We seek answers, not power." The alien women exchanged glances, their silent communication unsettling in its precision. Lyrian finally spoke again. "We will show you the truth, but understand this. There is always a price." The crew followed the alien women deeper into the forest, the air growing warmer and denser with each step. Strange plants swayed as if reacting to their presence, and the distant sound of running water filled the air. They eventually reached a clearing where a massive stone structure stood, part temple, part laboratory. Its architecture was unlike anything the crew had ever seen, a fusion of organic curves and precise geometric patterns. Inside, the crew marveled at the alien technology that seemed both ancient and futuristic. Glowing orbs floated in midair, casting soft light over walls covered in bioluminescent scripts. Lyrian gestured toward the center of the room, where a pool of crystal-clear liquid shimmered invitingly. "This," she said, "is the essence. It slows the passage of time within your cells, allowing your body to heal and resist aging. But it must be used carefully. Too much, and your mind will struggle to keep pace with your body." Ron stared at the pool, a storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. Could this be the answer he'd been searching for? Could it save his daughter? Kara rested a hand on his shoulder, sensing the weight of his dilemma. "We must proceed carefully," she whispered. "We don't know what this will do to us." Ron nodded. "We'll test it," he said, turning to Lyrian. "But only in small doses. We came to learn, not to gamble with lives." Lyrian gave a slow, approving nod. "Wise words. You will need that wisdom before this journey is over." As night fell, the crew set up camp within the temple. Strange constellations sparkled above the canopy, unfamiliar yet mesmerizing. Ron sat by the fire, deep in thought, while the rest of the crew exchanged quiet conversations about what they had seen. Kara joined him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think we can trust them?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Ron admitted. "But if even half of what they say is true, this could change everything." Kara nodded, her gaze drifting toward the dark forest beyond the temple. "Just hope we haven't stumbled into something we don't understand." As they sat in the quiet night, the alien women watched from the shadows, their expressions unreadable. The humans had taken their first step into a world where time moved like a dream, and the future, whether bright or dark, was now a path they could not unwalk. Dawn broke over the alien temple, casting golden light through the forest canopy. As the morning mist curled along the ground, Ron gathered the crew by the shimmering pool of essence. Kara stood at his side, her arms folded, watching as the alien women moved gracefully through the temple, observing them without speaking. "We need to test it," Ron announced to the group, his tone calm but firm. "We'll use a small dose, just enough to understand its effect. If this essence works the way they say, it could buy us time." Kara arched a brow. "And if it doesn't?" Ron exhaled slowly. "Then we leave, but we don't walk away from a chance like this without trying." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. A volunteer was needed, and it was Ethan, the ship's medic, who finally stepped forward. "If this stuff messes with biology, I'm the best one to test it," he said with a nervous grin. "Better me than someone who doesn't know what's happening to them." Lyrian stepped closer, dipping the slender vial into the pool and filling it with a small amount of the essence. The liquid shimmered like stardust, swirling with colors that seemed to shift with each heartbeat. "You will feel different," she warned as she handed the vial to Ethan. "Do not fight the sensation. Let it flow through you." With a glance at Ron and Kara, Ethan gave a small, resolute nod. "Here goes nothing." He raised the vial and drank. At first, nothing happened. Ethan stood there, blinking as if waiting for some immediate transformation. But after a few moments, his eyes widened. "Whoa," he whispered. "It's like my mind is speeding up, but my body's slowing down." His muscles relaxed, his breathing steady. The lines of fatigue on his face seemed to soften, and a look of quiet wonder spread across his features. "This is amazing," he said, flexing his fingers. It's like every cell in my body just took a deep breath. The crew watched in awe, a sense of cautious excitement spreading among them. Ron felt a flicker of hope ignite in his chest. Perhaps this really was the discovery they had been searching for. But Lyrian's expression remained solemn. "The first dose is easy," she said quietly. "But as time passes, the effects will deepen. And you must resist the urge to take more." Ethan gave a reassuring smile. "I think I'll be fine." But the warning lingered in the air, a shadow over their newfound hope. Over the next few days, Ethan thrived. His stamina improved, and minor injuries he sustained during exploration healed almost instantly. The essence seemed to work exactly as promised. Kara kept meticulous notes, recording every change in Ethan's physiology. Ron felt a cautious optimism growing within him. If this is what a single dose can do, he mused, imagine what this could mean for people suffering from chronic illnesses, or worse. Kara, however, remained skeptical. "This is too perfect," she murmured. "There has to be a catch. No way something this powerful comes without a cost." Her concerns proved well-founded. By the fourth day, Ethan began experiencing strange side effects. He complained of vivid, disjointed dreams, visions of distant stars and alien worlds. His perception of time seemed to slip, making moments stretch endlessly or vanish altogether. "I swear I just blinked," Ethan muttered one morning, rubbing his eyes, "but it feels like hours passed." Ron watched him closely, his earlier hope clouded by doubt. Kara shot him a knowing look. "We need to stop this now before it gets worse," she warned. Ethan shook his head, frustration flickering across his face. "No, I'm fine. I just need another dose. It'll balance out." Lyrian, standing silently nearby, stepped forward. "That is the trap," she said softly. "The essence grants time, but it takes as well. The more you rely on it, the harder it becomes to return to your natural state." Ethan's expression twisted with frustration. "You don't understand. I can handle it." "No," Lyrian said, her voice laced with an ancient sadness. "None of you can." As tensions rose, the crew began to divide. Some wanted to leave the island immediately, unwilling to risk further exposure. Others, fascinated by the essence's potential, argued that they couldn't walk away from a discovery that could change the course of humanity. Ron found himself caught in the middle, torn between caution and the weight of his mission. His daughter's pale face haunted his thoughts, reminding him of what was at stake. But he knew that if they stayed, the risks would only increase. "We can't let this become an addiction," Ron said, addressing the crew one evening. "We came here to learn, not to lose ourselves." Ethan glared at him, anger simmering beneath the surface. "You're just scared," he snapped. "This could save lives, and you want to walk away." Kara stepped between them. "Enough," she said firmly. "We make decisions together. No one's taking another dose until we know exactly what this stuff is." Reluctantly, the crew agreed. They would stay one more day to gather information, then leave the island, whether or not they found all the answers they sought. That night, the forest came alive with strange sounds. Ethereal lights danced among the trees, casting eerie shadows across the temple walls. The alien women moved silently through the darkness, their expressions unreadable as they watched the humans wrestle with the choices before them. In the distance, a low hum began to rise, like the heartbeat of the island itself. Ron stared out into the night, a chill running down his spine. Something was coming. And it wasn't just the essence they had to fear. The next morning, the island felt different. The air was heavier, the light dimmer, as if the island itself sensed the crew's indecision. Strange footprints appeared around their camp, delicate alien patterns in the soft earth. Lyrian and the other alien women remained quiet observers, their expressions unreadable. Ron gathered the crew by the pool of essence. They had one day left, but the island was shifting around them, as if warning them time was running out. We leave at dawn, Ron said firmly. We've gathered what we can. No one takes another dose. We're getting off this island while we still have a choice. Ethan scowled but kept his thoughts to himself, his frustration simmering just beneath the surface. Kara stayed close to Ron, her instincts sharp, sensing trouble brewing, not just within the crew, but from the island itself. As they began packing, Ron and Kara explored the temple further, hoping to uncover anything useful before departure. In a hidden chamber beneath the main hall, they discovered something that made their hearts freeze. Rows of ancient human artifacts, watches, glasses, and tattered clothing lined the walls. Kara knelt and picked up an old photograph, its edges faded and yellowed. It showed a man standing beside a ship, smiling at the camera. Ron stared at the photo, a chill washing over him. That's my grandfather. Kara's heart sank. He was here. The realization hit them both like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a place where others had come seeking answers. This was a trap. A timeless prison where curiosity turned into captivity. Lyrian appeared silently in the doorway, her gaze heavy with unspoken truths. Your kind always comes, she said softly. Always seeking, always hoping. Few ever leave. Ron clenched his fists, anger bubbling in his chest. Why didn't you tell us? Would it have stopped you? Lyrian asked gently. The essence binds more than your body. It binds your soul. The more you take, the harder it becomes to leave. That is the price. Kara's expression darkened. You tricked us. No, Lyrian whispered. We offered you knowledge. You chose to stay. Back at camp, Ethan had made his decision. As the others packed, he slipped away, drawn back to the pool of essence. He stared at its shimmering surface, his mind fractured by desire and fear. He could feel the pull of the essence, its promise of vitality, strength, and clarity. Just one more dose, he told himself. Just one more, and I'll be whole. He dipped a small vial into the pool and drank deeply, shuddering as the essence surged through him. For a moment, it was everything he had hoped for, pure energy flooding his veins, every ache and worry fading into nothingness. But then it turned. The world around him began to slow, his thoughts stretching endlessly. His body trembled, caught between moments that no longer fit together. He tried to call out, but his voice came out sluggish and warped, as if trapped in a dream. By the time Ron and Kara found him, it was too late. Ethan stood frozen, his eyes wide and glassy, as if caught between realities. Kara shook him, panic rising in her chest. Ethan, snap out of it. Ron grabbed her arm, pulling her away. He's gone. Kara's eyes filled with disbelief. No, he just needs time. There is no time. Ron said bitterly, not for him. Lyrian stood nearby, watching with quiet sadness. He has taken too much, she murmured. He will live, but not as you know life. His mind is untethered from time. Kara's fists clenched. You knew this would happen. Lyrian didn't deny it. We warned you. Some lessons cannot be taught, only learned. The crew stood in stunned silence, watching as Ethan's body remained motionless, like a statue caught between moments. Ron's jaw tightened. He knew what had to be done. We leave now, he said grimly. We can't save him. Kara stared at Ethan's frozen form, her heart heavy with regret. But she knew Ron was right. If they stayed any longer, they would share the same fate. With the help of the crew, they prepared to abandon the camp, leaving behind the strange treasures they had collected. The island seemed to shift around them as they worked, the forest closing in, as if trying to trap them within its embrace. The alien women watched silently from the edge of the clearing, their expressions filled with something close to pity, but not enough to intervene. As the crew made their way back to the horizon, the jungle seemed alive with strange sounds, whispers of those who had come before and never left. Ron and Kara led the way, navigating through the dense undergrowth with determined urgency. When they reached the beach, the sight of their ship brought a wave of relief. They scrambled aboard, hauling supplies and equipment as quickly as they could. But as the crew prepared to lift anchor, they noticed something chilling. The island was moving. The shoreline shifted, as if the land itself was alive, trying to draw them back. Ron shouted orders, and the crew worked frantically to get the ship moving. The ocean churned around them, waves rising high as if protesting their escape. Lyrian appeared at the edge of the water, her voice carrying over the roar of the sea. "The essence has marked you," she called. "Wherever you go, it will follow." Ron locked eyes with her, his heart pounding. "We'll take our chances." With a mighty heave, the anchor was lifted, and the horizon sailed away from the cursed island, its sails catching the wind. The alien women washed from the shore, their figures growing smaller as the ship vanished into the mist. As the island disappeared behind them, Ron stood at the helm, his thoughts heavy. They had escaped, but at what cost? Kara joined him, her expression somber. "We're not free, are we?" she asked quietly. Ron shook his head. "No, we've seen too much." They sailed into the open sea, the weight of their experience pressing down on them. Somewhere out there, the essence still called to them. Reminder that some discoveries can never be left behind. The horizon cut through the waves with purpose, but the crew's spirits were anything but steady. The island was far behind them, swallowed by mist and sea, but its grip lingered, an invisible weight pressing on their minds. Ron stood at the helm, eyes locked on the horizon as the wind filled the sails. Every mile they put between them and the cursed island brought a flicker of hope, but he knew it wasn't over. Kara leaned against the railing, her expression distant, haunted by the image of Ethan frozen in time. "We escaped," she muttered, half to herself, "but it feels like the real danger is just beginning." Ron gave a slow nod. "The essence marked us," he said quietly. "We left the island, but it didn't leave us." The first sign of trouble came the next morning. One of the younger crew members, Miles, stumbled across the deck, looking dazed. His eyes were bloodshot, and his movements sluggish, as if he were wading through a dream. "Captain," he slurred, gripping the rail for support. "I think time's slipping." Ron caught him before he fell, lowering him gently onto the deck. "Stay with me, Miles. What's happening?" The young sailor blinked slowly, confusion etched across his face. "I swear it was midnight a second ago, but now the sun's already up." Kara crouched beside them, checking his pulse. "He's out of sync," she whispered, her voice tense. "It's like his sense of time is unraveling." Ron cursed under his breath. "The essence is still affecting us." They had taken every precaution to avoid overexposure, but the island's power had followed them into the sea, and the symptoms were only getting worse. By the second day, the entire crew began to feel the effects. Time seemed to twist and distort, moments dragging on endlessly, while hours slipped away in the blink of an eye. Some sailors reported strange dreams. Others felt flashes of déjà vu, as if they were living the same moments over and over. Kara kept a close eye on everyone, making detailed notes in her journal, but even she wasn't immune. She found herself losing track of conversations mid-sentence, forgetting whether something had just happened or had happened hours ago. "We have to find a way to stop this," she told Ron as they stood together on the deck that evening, the sun setting too quickly over the restless sea. "If we don't, we're going to lose our minds." Ron clenched his fists, frustration building in his chest. "There has to be a way to reverse it. The essence is tied to time. There must be some way to disrupt the connection." Kara's gaze darkened. "Even if there is, it might already be too late." That night, Ron dreamed of the island. He was back in the temple, standing before the pool of essence. Lyrian appeared beside him, her gaze soft but filled with warning. "You cannot run from what has marked you," she whispered. "The essence flows through you now. To sever its grip, you must find what you seek most, and let it go." Ron woke with a start, cold sweat clinging to his skin. The words echoed in his mind like a riddle. What did he seek most? What was he willing to let go? He thought of his daughter, fragile and sick, waiting for him back home. He thought of the hope that had driven him to find the island in the first place. And suddenly, the answer became clear. "We have to destroy what we took," Ron announced to the crew the following morning. He held up the vials of essence they had collected, precious samples meant to be studied and used for the good of humanity. "If we keep it, the essence will keep us trapped. It's the only way." The crew erupted in protest. "You can't do that." One of the sailors shouted, "This is the discovery of a lifetime. You're throwing away everything we've worked for." Another added angrily. Kara's expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of understanding in her eyes. She knew Ron was right. This was the only way to escape the curse. "If we don't do this," Ron said firmly, "we won't make it home." One by one, the crew reluctantly handed over their vials. Ron and Kara gathered them at the bow of the ship, their hands shaking as they prepared to toss the samples overboard. "This is the right thing," Kara whispered, as much to herself as to Ron. He gave a solemn nod. "We let it go, and maybe, just maybe, we get our lives back." With a deep breath, Ron threw the vials into the sea. They shattered upon impact, the essence dissipating into the water like stardust. For a moment, nothing happened. The ocean remained still, the sky unchanged. Then, a strange sensation washed over the crew. The air grew lighter, the oppressive weight that had followed them since the island lifted. The haze clouding their minds began to clear, and the twisted grip of time slowly released them. "It's working," Kara whispered, relief flooding her voice. "We're free." As the days passed, the symptoms faded. Time settled back into its natural rhythm, and the crew's spirits lifted. They had escaped the curse of the essence, though not without loss. Ethan's fate haunted them, a grim reminder of the dangers they had faced. But as the horizon sailed toward home, Ron allowed himself a rare moment of peace. He stood at the helm, the wind in his hair and the sun warm on his skin. The journey had changed them all, but they had survived. Kara joined him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "We made it," she said softly. Ron nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Yeah, we did." After weeks at sea, the horizon finally reached the shores of civilization. The familiar skyline of the harbor city rose on the horizon, and the sight filled the crew with relief. For Ron, it was a bittersweet return. They had escaped the grip of the essence, but the cost was heavy, and the journey had left its mark. As they docked, curious onlookers gathered along the pier. Kara jumped down to secure the ropes while Ron remained at the helm, scanning the crowd for one face in particular, his daughter Sarah. His heart pounded as he searched, hoping that the time they had lost at sea hadn't stolen her from him forever. Then, from the crowd, she emerged, frail but alive. A wave of emotion hit Ron as Sarah ran toward him, her small frame wrapped in layers of blankets. Ron leaped off the ship and swept her into his arms, holding her close. For the first time in months, the crushing weight of fear and uncertainty lifted. "Dad," Sarah whispered into his shoulder, her voice thin but filled with joy. "I knew you'd come back." As the crew disembarked, Kara stood quietly beside Ron, watching the reunion with a soft smile. But even as the others celebrated their return, a strange sense of unease gnawed at her. The city looked different, not in any obvious way, but there was something off, something she couldn't quite place. It wasn't long before they began to notice the subtle changes. Time seemed to flow normally, but the people they encountered behaved strangely. Conversations felt slightly out of sync, like watching a poorly dubbed film. Street clocks ticked in rhythm, yet somehow seemed out of place. Ron and Kara exchanged uneasy glances as they walked through the bustling streets. "Do you feel that?" Kara asked in a low voice. "Like we're out of step with everything." Ron nodded, his expression grim. It's not just the island. Something followed us home. That night, the crew gathered in a small inn on the edge of the city, hoping for some rest and clarity. The familiar comforts of civilization, the warm food, the soft beds, felt strange, like memories from a distant dream. As they ate in silence, the weight of the past few weeks settled over them. Kara broke the silence first. "Do you think the essence is really gone?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ron leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "I don't know," he admitted. "We destroyed what we took, but maybe it left something behind." The room grew heavy with unspoken fears. They had escaped the island, but the essence's grip was insidious. It had twisted time, fractured their perception, and perhaps, just perhaps, it had embedded itself deeper than they realized. As the crew prepared to part ways, Kara pulled Ron aside. "I don't think this is over," she said quietly. "Something about this place, it feels wrong. Like we're still trapped in its web." Ron exhaled slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "Then we find a way to break free, for good." The following morning, they began their search. They visited scholars and scientists, consulting anyone who might understand the strange effects of the essence, but no one had ever encountered anything like it. Some dismissed their experiences as hallucinations born of isolation and exhaustion. Others warned that the essence might not be limited to the island, that once touched by its power, a person could never truly escape it. One night, Ron found himself alone, staring at the ticking clock on the wall. The hands moved normally, but he felt disconnected from the passage of time, as if part of him still lingered on that cursed island. Voice echoed in his mind, Lyrian's final warning. "Wherever you go, it will follow." Ron closed his eyes, frustration and fear swirling within him. Had they brought the essence back with them, or had they never truly left the island at all? The answer came unexpectedly. One of the crew members, Miles, was found wandering the streets, disoriented and mumbling incoherently. When Ron and Kara tracked him down, they discovered that he had been experiencing strange visions, flashes of the island, of alien women watching him from the shadows. "They're still here," Miles whispered, his voice trembling. "I see them, in my dreams, in every reflection." Kara's heart sank. "It's not over," she murmured. "The essence, it's still with us." Ron clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Then we end it," he said, determination hardening his voice. "Whatever it takes, we cut the connection, for good." As the city slept, Ron and Kara gathered the remaining crew. They had one last mission, to return to the island and destroy whatever power still lingered there. They would sail into the unknown once more, not for discovery, but for survival. "We leave at dawn," Ron announced, his voice steady. "This time, we don't come back until it's finished." Kara gave a sharp nod. No more half measures. The crew, though weary, rallied around their captain. They had faced the island once before, and they would do it again. This time, they would make sure its grip was broken, no matter the cost. As the first light of morning painted the sky, the horizon set sail once more. The sea stretched out before them, vast and unforgiving, but they sailed with purpose. This was no longer a journey of exploration. It was a reckoning. Ron stood at the helm, his gaze locked on the distant horizon. Kara stood beside him, her hand resting on the ship's rail. They had survived the island's curse once. They would survive it again. And this time, they would end it. The sea was restless, as if aware of the crew's intent. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, and a chill wind howled through the rigging as the horizon sailed toward the cursed island. Ron, Kara, and the crew stood resolute, knowing this was their last chance to sever the bond that tethered them to the essence. As the island's jagged cliffs loomed into view, the mist thickened, wrapping around the ship like grasping fingers. The crew navigated through the treacherous rocks, hearts pounding with both fear and determination. When the ship finally dropped anchor, the eerie silence of the shore greeted them once more, as if the island had been waiting for their return. "We end this today," Ron said grimly, leading the way off the ship and into the dense forest. Kara followed close behind, clutching her journal, a record of every strange occurrence since their first encounter with the essence. The path to the temple was familiar, but the forest seemed more alive this time. Branches swayed without wind, and strange shapes flitted through the shadows. The alien women appeared sporadically in the distance, watching, always watching, but never interfering. When the crew reached the temple, they found it untouched, as if no time had passed since their departure. The pool of essence still shimmered at the heart of the chamber, radiating with an unnatural glow. Lyrian stood beside it, her gaze serene but filled with ancient sadness. "You have returned," she said softly. "You know now that the essence cannot be taken, only given." Ron stepped forward, fists clenched. "We didn't come for answers. We came to end this." Lyrian tilted her head. "End what? Time, the essence, or yourselves?" Ron ignored her cryptic words. "How do we destroy it?" The alien woman's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something, perhaps pity. "To destroy the essence," she whispered, "you must give it what it craves most." Kara stepped beside Ron, her voice steady. "What does it want?" Lyrian's gaze softened. "Release. It has clung to time for too long. To break the cycle, you must surrender what you fear losing most." Ron's heart sank as realization struck. He thought of his daughter, of the fear that had driven him to the island in the first place. The essence fed on that fear, on the desperation to outrun time. To end the curse, he would have to let go of the very thing that had brought him here, his hope of saving her. "No," Ron whispered, shaking his head. "There has to be another way." "There is not," Lyrian said gently. "You sought to control time. Now you must release it." Ron stood frozen, torn between duty and desire. Kara placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice low. "Ron, we came here to end this. If we don't, it'll follow us, and your daughter, forever." Tears stung his eyes, but he nodded. "You're right," he whispered hoarsely. "It's the only way." With a deep breath, Ron stepped toward the pool of essence. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the photograph of his daughter, token of everything he had fought for. It trembled in his hand as he stared at it, his heart breaking. "I let you go," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I release my fear. I release my hope." He placed the photograph on the shimmering surface of the pool. The essence surged with a blinding light, and the alien women stepped back, their expressions unreadable. The photograph dissolved into stardust, and the glow of the pool dimmed, flickering like a dying flame. The ground beneath the temple began to tremble, cracks spreading along the ancient stone floor. The essence pulsed one last time, then collapsed inward, vanishing into nothingness. The pool was gone, drained, empty, as if it had never existed. Lyrian gave a slow nod, her gaze filled with quiet approval. "It is done," she whispered. "You have freed yourself, and us." Without another word, the alien women turned and disappeared into the forest, their forms dissolving into mist. The temple walls crumbled, and the air grew lighter, the oppressive weight that had followed the crew lifting at last. Kara exhaled, a shaky smile spreading across her face. "We did it," she whispered. "It's really over." Ron gave a small, weary nod. "Yeah, it's over." The journey back to the horizon was eerily quiet. The island, once alive with strange sounds and whispers, was now silent, peaceful, even. When they reached the ship, Ron looked back one last time at the island, feeling a strange sense of closure. "Let's go home," he said softly. Kara gave him a reassuring smile. "Home it is." The return voyage was smooth, as if the sea itself had been waiting to reward their efforts. Days blended into nights, but there was no longer a sense of time slipping away. just the steady, natural rhythm of life returning to normal. When they reached the harbor, Ron's heart raced as he scanned the crowd. And then, there she was, Sarah, standing on the pier, her face lighting up with joy the moment she saw him. Ron swept her into his arms, holding her close, tears of relief streaming down his face. "I'm home," he whispered, "and I'm staying." As the crew disbanded, Kara stood beside Ron on the dock, watching the others go their separate ways. "What now?" she asked, a hint of playfulness in her voice. Ron smiled, a genuine smile for the first time in what felt like years. "We live," he said simply. "No more chasing time, no more essence, just life." Kara chuckled. "I think I can get behind that." With one last glance at the open sea, Ron turned and walked away, his daughter's hand in his. The storm was over, and the future, uncertain though it might be, was theirs to shape. For the first time in a long while, Ron felt at peace. And the essence was nothing more than a distant memory.